suffering from violence, but also billions of people that are enacting violence. And we've got to, and because one of the things that people will always tell you when you bring this stuff up, that there are people that are criminally, quote unquote, criminally inclined, and so how do we deal with those people? I mean, is it a matter of throwing them in a cage and locking the door and throwing away the key, or
well, that's not an option.
Nah, because I mean we've had that idea for centuries. So let's have a look. Has incarceration worked?
No. Straight up, just no. There's no reason to explain. Look at what's happening. No. Once in a while, maybe, but that's it. And that's if the person has had enough stimulation afterwards and are willing to not go down that road again. But then again, your will is not free, so.
Yeah, and because this is one thing that Dr. James Gilligan would refer to as the need for restraint, because
we want restraint, not punishment. Restraint is to pull them from society, but you got to work on finding out what's going wrong with them. I think personally, the first thing you should eliminate and see if it's a brain damage problem. If there's a brain damage, then you can easily fix that. Then, if that's not the case, you got to find out the social problem. What's going on with them? What happened in their life? But you got to do it in a way that helps them, not force them. You can't pin them down and say, "What the fuck is going on? Why are you doing this?" You got to actually work with them. You got to make them feel comfortable. You got to give them what they were missing all those years: feeling safe, give them some care, love them a little bit. I don't mean love as in sexual stuff. I just mean, because some people do take it that way. When I said threesome, so, but yeah, it's just, you gotta take your time. And it really, instead of, to deal with violence, you gotta figure out where is this drive, what's the drive of that violence? Are they starving? Are they fighting over food, which is little of, and it's starting to happen that way today? Mm-hmm. And it's actually made that way because of the system requires it. And is it because of water shortages, which is what California is going through more than ever before? Is it, are you bumping into somebody? Are you in a crawl space? It all depends. And then there's the mental versions of that. Mm-hmm. Everything from, did you get the care and affection, your nutrition? Did you, are you stonewalled everywhere you question, which is the mental crawl space? You got all kinds of shit that can go wrong. So you have to tackle each issue in certain ways, depending on what it is. And with food, I like to. I'm trying to help Douglas Millette promote his
Cybernetic farm systems.
Yes, thank you. I tried. But yeah, I'll explain more later on. But there's also things like desalinization plants, and I remember a question that you were asked. When you asked the question, somebody asked you about what we do with the salt. Well, I have a suggestion on that. If the salt is clean or needs to be clean, we can then use that to put with food instead of the refined salt we have. Because sea salt's healthier, far healthier, a lot stronger, but healthier than refined salt. And it actually has all kinds of good properties in it, as opposed to refined salt, which is nothing but chemicals and bullshit.
Yeah. So I guess it becomes the question of, okay, so what do we do with the refined salt?
No, refined salt, stop making it. There you go. Don't make it.
Yeah, but for the supply that already exists, would we have to just exhaust that first?
Exactly. I honestly wouldn't know. But we could always try to find a way to break it down and see what we can do with the chemicals and stuff, and what can we do to use it for good things. You
Yeah.
know. As far as now, so far we haven't gotten there yet, but for oxygen, that's a tricky one. I mean, if we're suffering on oxygen, we can't really solve that problem because we're suffering. We're at a point where we can't think about doing anything but trying to breathe. So, I mean, that's something you have to prevent. Otherwise, we're not going to survive. Whereas food, you can live for like a good month without food before you die. With water, you have a few days, so that's not really an option either. And then with air, you can die within minutes, seconds. So that's something you have to prevent. There is no solving right now. Solving if it's no waiting until then. You've got to stop that now. You have to bring the trees back. Mental issues. Make sure the person has all the attention they need. So that so much so they don't want it anymore. You know what I mean? As opposed to trying to find ways to get attention, even if it's violent.
Yeah.
I that's all I got as far as solutions go. I mean, there's a lot more out there. I just suggest everybody go and look at it. You know?
Yeah, because I mean, this is something that quite a while back I went back through a lot of my podcasts to see, how many times I touched on this subject, and I realised I touched on it quite a few times, like with like different sort of angles, but
it's not there. There's no one answer for all this stuff.
No, because really the only sort of the closest thing to a universal answer that I could think of is consider the phenomenon as violence as a social as a public health issue. And as such, it should be treated that way. So we identify the cause, that being, the paradigm that we live in is not conducive to our needs being met. Why is our paradigm not conducive to our lives being met? Oh, those stupid humans, they've put a system of pieces of paper in between them and the resources they need to survive.
Yeah,
silly humans.
As far as solutions go, there is one particular field which I don't think too many people talk about. There are a lot of people that believe in UFOs. I'm not, just like with religion, with God and all that stuff. I'm not saying they're not real. I just don't see evidence of it. But I'll tell you this, though. A lot of people try to show evidence of UFOs. And it's amazing what they come up with. Now, if they could spend all that energy on UFOs to coming up with solutions with their problems now.
Oh, yeah.
Eventually, I mean, we would see a huge shift really quickly because that's a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And we could eventually then meet those aliens they see evidence of. But I also think those aliens are here looking at us like we look at ants. Oh, look, they're doing this and that. They're fighting over something. Share over resources. But then when you take a blue dot perspective, a pale blue dot perspective, you're going to think, why are they fighting over a speck?
Yeah. Yeah, it is very much like that, and it's for that reason that I'm not surprised that they haven't come out and say, assuming that they do exist. I mean, you could take the Drake equation, which basically says that it's mathematically unlikely that that given the ingredients of life, given the ubiquitous nature of the distribution of all these different elements and molecules, it's highly unlikely that we are the only form of life. Like when we live in just this tiny. I mean, tiny part of this universe, and the amount of the cosmos that we have discovered to have exist isn't much larger than that, and so it's Neil deGrasse Tyson put it best, I think, when he said that saying that there's no such thing as life on other planets is like taking a cup of seawater and saying there's no such thing as whales. But
yeah, it's just like the fighting over a speck. You can take the same thing and saying the Earth is an electron.
Yeah.
Going around an atom, and the atoms are all there. So it's just, we're an electron, and we need to get our asses together before we destroy that electron, which could set the whole molecule out of balance and become volatile,
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. It's that interconnected symbiotic relationship that needs to be sort of recognised on a fundamental level. And that's partly why I'm so glad that organisations and movements such as the Zeitgeist movement exist, because it is that, as you said earlier, that knowledge base, and also that sort of like that little spark for that fire under people's asses to say, come on, we got problems. You're alive. You're in a position of opportunity to be able to do something. So come on, what are you advocating to change this world? Oh, I'm not really. Okay, why are you complaining then?
If you're not trying anything, don't complain.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I say to people. There was like one of the guys that I knew in real life who I was having like a discussion / debate with on Facebook, and he was displaying a very, very cynical fatalist worldview that there is no hope for humanity and all that sort of stuff. And I'm just like, if that is how you feel, stop complaining. Whenever you feel the urge to complain about any sort of thing, you're of the opinion, remember, that there is no hope, so there's nothing that can be done. So enjoy your slavery. Learn to love your slavery. He didn't like that at all.
Because without them, you couldn't survive, right?
Yeah. And,
and
that's the thing.
Sorry.
And when it comes back to violence, violence within a symbiotic system is that, the system itself, it will take around with it. It will basically circulate all the ideas and concepts and behaviours that we have. It will cycle it through to all other people because our behaviours have social ramifications, and it's a bit like an invasive, like you said earlier, it's like an invasive cancer, and people, there is no such thing as a perpetrator of violence that isn't also a victim of violence, because as we've spent the last couple of hours discussing, when a human being's life needs are not met, then violence is something that they're exposed to, and maybe if they're also exposed to other forms of violence in the context of a coping mechanism, then they say, when your wife isn't listening to you, that's what that frying pan is for.
It's like, oh shit. But then if you're beaten over your head enough time, you're not going to remember anything at all at that point. You're going to keep doing it.
Yeah, it's likely.
That's because there's no problems resolved. Communication's a big thing too.
Yeah.
Huge thing.
Yes. Yeah. That's one thing that has been missing from what I've been saying. That because as you said, the analysing of the situation. Why have they been violent? What's their situation? And also to communicate with them to gain this information and also because communication is not one-sided. It's always
it takes two to tango.
Exactly. And communication back and forth with that individual can help their wounds as well as the wounds of those who they have harmed, because in this process we are all victims of violence, so we all need healing. And because I would say that the perpetrators of violence need just as much healing as their victims do. If not more.
Not more. Oh my God, but yeah, communication though I think has to be the most important aspect, because you can communicate what was your thoughts across. You will have you'll be a huge giant leap into solving the problem. Without that communication, it's not going to make sense. It's like it's like a blind person talking to a deaf person, you know.
Blindly. Or was it a deaf person leading a blind person?
I'm sorry. Yes.
No, blind. No. I can't remember. No, blind leading a blind, or because I think sorry, you were saying. Yeah, sorry, I'm fucking up your analogies. Sorry, go ahead.
It's cool. But yeah, it's we need that communication. It's the same thing with the let's define the term relationship. Relationship is an interaction with two persons and or objects. That's a relationship. So if anybody says relationship is boyfriend and girlfriend, they can kiss my ass. That's not what it means. That's just one version of it.
Exactly.
You know. And so when where was I getting at with this?
Relationship.
Communication, again. So communication in any relationship is a huge thing. It's the same for boyfriend, girlfriend, husband and wife, between friends, siblings, and relatives. You got everything from your workers and co-workers to everything. Everything's a relationship of some kind. And if they aren't communicated well, you're going to have a lot of issues. Like everything as small as, oops, I didn't tell you to turn left and you walked into the wall, to something as disastrous as you put the wrong decimal place somewhere and you got a huge sum of money from the banks and you're going to be in trouble with the FBI. And even to go as far as you spoke the wrong word in a certain language to another group of people and got them all killed, in a war. So, I mean, communication is very important, but that's just the negative side. You also have the positive side where it helps bring people together, and you got all forms of communication. You got everything from vocalization, which comes into music. You got art, and you got comedy. Comedy has been making a huge breakthrough as far as communicating ideas.
Oh yeah.
And music, especially with bands like Enter Shikari.
Enter Shikari, yeah.
Yes, their third album, I believe, was influenced by the Zeitgeist movement.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, finally, some music that portrays this like directly. And the thing about this, though, with all the science and art, I'm going to take this to another step further. Look at nature. Okay, nature is musical, it is artistic, and in some extent, comedic, like the platypus, for example. I mean, it's a great thing, and you can break it down into scientific terms, scientific areas, which are all together, just like we are all together. We are all connected to one another. So is all the sciences and the art and the music and everything. It's all together. It's just hard to look at it that way because we've been looking at things as separate for centuries, especially more so today than ever before. I mean, the hunter-gatherer tribe saw everything as one, music and all. So it's sad when the scary part is, what I fear the most is when I stop hearing the music of nature, when that becomes silent.
Yeah,
that's
because there's no guarantee that that what we're left with is anything better. Because, well, actually, no, scrap that, because there is nothing that can be truer for our for our optimal functioning than, as you said, the music of nature. Because what else? I mean, you know, you can tell
when you hear it, but when it's attacked, like deforestation, it's noisy. It's the noisy of industrialization.
Hmm.
You know, it's just it's I mean, I love cities. Don't get me wrong, but nature has a beautiful sound,
Yeah.
and I don't want to see that gone. You
No.
know, it's why we're alive. You
Hmm.
know, nature. If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be existing right now.
No.
You know,
Exactly. Yeah, and that's that. I mean, I guess our way of living has given us a huge ego to think that we're separate from nature,
yes,
or that nature is something that, oh, don't worry about. Nature will take care of itself. We can do whatever the hell we want. You know, surely what we're doing isn't going to be having any massive impact on nature, right? Well, I mean, acknowledging the impact would seriously decrease our profit margins, so that's probably why we don't do it. So that's why we don't acknowledge the impact. But
but eventually it's going to become bad enough where they can't ignore it anymore.
yeah,
They have to acknowledge it. But hopefully it's not too late.
yeah, and that's
That's
the
horrifying. That's what I try not to like constantly be on it, but sometimes I'm like, ah,
yeah.
why?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, man. It's almost like there's like that by itself is like a double-edged sword. You recognise that people have to directly experience at least discomfort of their living conditions to be incentivized to change things, but by the same token, you recognise that that the necessary negativities themselves in some cases have to be quite cataclysmic. That, you know, like, say for example, you know, a person losing their job or an entire country going bust. You know, they're positive in the sense that it gives them that excuse that people can point to and say, look, come on now, surely you can't ignore it by now, surely. I mean, come on. I mean, you know, profits, you're still chasing profits, and we've got this. I mean, hello? Woo!
Guys, whoa.
You know.
That's become now the story. In an RVE, that would become the distortion of reality, is that everything, you need to make a profit, you need to buy stuff and sell. That would be the distortion of reality, and the reality is what it really is, that we're all one, we're all working together and contributing to one another. Instead of what we're doing today, the exact opposite, which is the reality today, and the other part is considered the distortion of reality. It's interesting though, because if I may real quick, I'd like to add another example on distortions of reality. And as you mentioned before about twisted things. When I was at Job Corps, there was one, I mean, that, again, Job Corps is the template, is the exact replica of the real world, just put into a 3 block by 3 block campus. And believe me, that's stressful. The longer you're there, the more depressed you get. Basically, there was this one kid there who had a lot of issues, and I was testing out my abilities that I had gotten from reading the psychological warfare books, but I soon found out that I was in over my head. And this kid, I questioned a lot of things, and he had no problem answering my questions. He was honest completely with what he was thinking. And the things he had talked about were so morbid.
Yeah.
I mean, everything from wanting to combine different chemicals in a household and use it to like poison people to to dreams of zombies, of being a zombie and eating people and all
Oh,
kinds of things, man. Dude, and that is like two of maybe over hundreds of things he mentioned. And by the end of that, I was like, I was scared. I wanted to run away. But I'm
keep
serious.
me
That
away
like,
from him.
no, but I actually turned him in because he was threatening to kill two of the staff members. And with
Oh,
what he mentioned, I wasn't taking that risk.
yeah,
That's somebody who you cannot take a risk on. That's also somebody you want to remove from society, find out the problem, and try to work on it. You
yeah,
know,
yeah. Because I
but
mean, as we were saying, when an individual actually does pose a real threat of harm to either themselves or from society, that's where isolation, or well, not necessarily
yeah,
isolation, but just
temper.
isolation from the general populace, just as a sort of
Yes,
like safeguard sort of thing. It's not because generally that that's the sort of justification that prison uses, that we're isolating, you wouldn't want
yeah.
that mob charging down your street sort
And
of
then they
thing.
abuse
So
them.
yeah, but it's all to sort of hide the fact that we lock people up, as a retaliation. And
Yeah.
that's the thing with how
Well,
we punish things. It's an emotional retaliation, and not a sort of real work of
yeah,
empathy to prevent it.
that just shows that we don't know what to do with them as a whole,
Mm.
you know. And the other thing too is I actually found the root cause of where his issue was. Okay,
Yeah.
it was a combination of his father, who he loved dearly, okay, was always out and about. His mother treated him like shit, would take everything from him. So when I met him, he kept like grabbing stuff and looking at it. He didn't steal it; he just grabbed it, which is a reflex, a knee-jerk reaction of always having things taken from him.
Yeah.
And he, what was it? He hates women, especially those of authority.
Mm.
Okay, because his mother treated him so badly, and he would always play video games, particularly zombie games. So that added into the cannibalism, the imagination of all kinds of things, and being constantly saturated with that in his head from all kinds of behavior and conditions he was under. But he loved his father, so he has no problems with males. He had problems with females,
Mm.
especially those who try to control him or take things away. He gets really, really violent. Um, but yeah, it was just. I mean, he was genuinely a nice kid, just really, really fucked up,
Mm.
sadly. And um, I hope he's gotten better, but I highly doubt that in this society.
Mm.
And
Yeah. I
that's
mean,
the sad part. I want to see people get better. I want to see more people being able to have fun with me, or have fun with each other, not just be like, oh, this is my property. Build more prisons, but not here. That's a
yeah.
George Carlin line. It's like,
Yeah.
build more prisons, but not here.
Not
It's
in
like,
my
why?
backyard.
Yeah, NIMBY and NBY, not in my backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's also the a real mindset that that most people have.
Mm.
You'll hear and you'll hear that from the upper class people, like the upper working class and the rich in general. Build more prisons, but not over here. Two things. First, is George Carlin's logic of it, which makes more sense. And then there's the idea that the fact that do we need prisons at all? Only not in the sense that we have them today. We need a facility which we can put them and to give them books to read, stuff to do, at the same time trying to find out what's going on.
Mm.
In fact, in Sweden, they're planning on shutting down their prison system.
Wow.
And yeah, and the way their prisons are right now, they already have a room, they have a computer, they have books to read and stuff to do. Now they're going to shut it down to really solve that problem a little bit further.
Hmm.
But at the same time, these countries in the Scandinavian countries are like the best places to live. They still have a bit of